In this video, I'm going to show you how to take an everyday object, such as this key, and draw it from observation, meaning actually looking at the key, looking at the object that you want to draw, and then replicating or drawing it on a piece of paper as close to real life as possible. To do this, we are going to use blocking out, a basic drawing skill where you break down a more complex shape, such as this key, into basic shapes, and then use that as a guide to draw the actual object. So to practice drawing with blocking out, we're going to need a piece of paper, a pencil, definitely an eraser, and then you're going to want to find some sort of object to look at when you're drawing. This could be something as simple as your house key or a marker. You could also pick something more complex, like I've got this little Groot bobblehead. But this skill of blocking out works for any object, any picture that you might be looking at. But for this specifically, observational drawing, we want an actual object to look at. So find something from your backpack, find something on the table around you, but you're going to pick something to draw from. For my example, I think I'm going to do the house key, so I'm going to move Groot and the marker off to the side. So it can be tempting to want to just trace an object. Something like this key would be easy to trace. Little Groot, he's going to be a bit more difficult to trace. But the whole point of observational drawing is to be able to look at an object, use blocking out to break it down into smaller shapes, and then draw it by actually observing or looking at it. So for this key, I'm going to draw it much larger than its actual size, and I'm going to start with some simple shapes. So looking at this key, I kind of am seeing a rectangle here. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle very lightly, because remember, with blocking out, these basic shapes we start with, we're probably going to erase parts of. So I've got my rectangle. I'm seeing this kind of rounded triangle on the top. I'm not even going to get that crazy yet. I'm just going to draw a triangle on top. Then the key comes down and there's this bump out part. I could try to go and draw that in and match it on both sides, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw another rectangle on the bottom, and I'm going to make it skinnier than the one that I started with, and I'm going to make sure that it's not the same width as my top rectangle, because this part comes in a little bit. For the base of the key, you guessed it probably, I'm going to just draw a rectangle to start, this time much longer and thinner than the other ones. And then for the bottom, I might even do a little triangle. So we've taken really simple shapes we know how to draw, triangles, rectangles, and we have started the basic shape of this key. Now that we have blocked out using simple shapes and lines the general shape of our key, we're going to actually go in and start making the actual shape that we see. So I can see that the lines of the top of the key are very curved. So I'm going to start by kind of rounding out my corners. I want these curved. And this is going to make it a lot easier to make my key symmetrical or the same on both sides, because I have the guide of the rectangle that I already drew. The key curves up, and it doesn't actually stay a pointy triangle. It curves at the top here. So if I want, as I go along, I can erase these extra lines that I no longer need, these extra shapes, and I can see that I'm starting to get the shape of the key. So one of the benefits of drawing from observation is that you can actually pick up and inspect the object you are looking at. You're going to get a lot more information looking at a physical object than a picture or a video. So looking at this key, I can see there are grooves in it. There is some texture from where the metal has rubbed off. There are some numbers in it. I can see and more closely inspect the grooves of the actual key. So I can start going in and adding some of those details. I'm going to start by using another basic triangle to kind of fit in the keyhole, and then curving it. Now I can go in and erase some of these extra lines I no longer need. I can also see that there's a little indent all the way around the top of the key. So I can go in and I can draw that line in and start trying to match the object as closely as I'm seeing it in real life. And then now we're going to move on to this next part of the key, this rounded rectangle part here. So the key curves, it doesn't have a straight corner here, so I'm going to need to curve my line coming down. And then similar to the top of the key, all of these corners are curved. So I'm going to go in and curve the corners and not keep them straight. There's a lot more detail on here. There's like a line that kind of goes all the way up to the engraving. So I'm going to not start drawing the whole thing, but I am going to start kind of getting some of these general shapes in as I see them. And one of the main parts of observational drawing is that I'm constantly looking back and forth between my object and what I'm seeing on it. So I'm seeing those little indents, those lines. I'm constantly looking back and forth between that actual object and what I am drawing. The next part of the key I'm going to draw is the shape of the actual key. So this line does stay pretty straight, and then it kind of curves down. And the base of the key isn't actually pointed like a triangle. It kind of flattens out and then goes back up. I'm going to erase some of these extra lines that I've got as I go. And then probably the trickiest part of this key is going to be trying to draw this jagged shape here. So again, one of the best parts about looking at it in person, and try and get it to where you guys can see it on the screen, is that I can look at the grooves of this more closely. So this line that I had, the rectangle, was used as a general guide, but now I can erase that and keep the teeth of the key how I've drawn it. Then I can go in and I see that this line does go all the way down to the base of the key. This groove here also goes all the way down. So I'm drawing lots of tiny little lines to try and make that straight line. You could also use a ruler, but I'm just kind of sketching for right now. So whether you have been drawing your whole life and you know how to draw from observation, or if this is going to be your first attempt at drawing from observation, I highly recommend using blocking out, starting with your simple shapes first, and then really paying attention, comparing back and forth. What am I actually looking at? What are the lines I'm actually seeing? Where can I match my drawing to my object? Don't try and trace your object. Use the simple shapes first. Pay attention, looking back and forth, and really try to draw what you're seeing. You could try drawing house keys or different things from your backpack, but in general, pick an object, stick with it, and try and get it to look as close to real life as possible using observational drawing. You can practice this anytime you have free time or as often as you want with different types of objects. The more you draw, the better you will get at it. Drawing is a skill you acquire. It's something you learn. It's something you grow in. So practice, 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 and you will see your skills improve.